Good morning, everyone. After spending the last couple of days talking about expenses associated with renting an apartment and owning a home, next few lessons are going to be just about kind of budgeting in general. So how to set it up, how to organize it, and other expenses that go along with that. So for example, when we were brainstorming yesterday and we came up with like food, right? Obviously that's something that you need to budget for, right? Grocery, personal stuff. But that wasn't part of our discussion the past couple of days. So now we're going to talk about all that stuff sort of in general here. So for some definitions, okay, a budget is an organized income and spending plan. Okay, the next point, and this is kind of the key one here, a budget is balanced when the amount of money coming in is equal to the amount of money coming out. So the main thing there is, right, it's got to come out to a total of zero. So like you know where all the money is going. So obviously you don't want to be in debt, okay, because that's a problem. But even if you have money left over, the idea would be that you have to send it somewhere, right? So if you run through a budget and realize that you've got an extra $50 lying around, you should be allocating that somewhere, right? Like say, I'm going to put this into savings, something like that. Okay, when one item in a budget changes, so let's say there's an increase in one of your expenses, okay, another item, okay, is going to have to change. So other items in the budget must be altered to maintain the balance. Okay, similarly, right, if your income goes up, then potentially you can make some changes to your budget as well. Okay. So a budget is typically divided into income and expenses, right? That's your money coming in and your money going out. Okay. In both of those categories, there can be fixed and variable elements. Okay. For example, someone who receives a steady paycheck has a fixed income. So if you make, a salary and they always pay the exact same amount every 2 weeks, then you would have a fixed income. Okay. Whereas someone who does contract or seasonal work would have a variable income, right? It's based on what you've done, and so you don't know exactly how much is coming in, right? Which can make it a bit more of a challenge trying to figure out what your budget would look like. So like we've done the past couple days, we're going to take a minute to do a little bit of brainstorming, okay, around this. So this might be a good time to pause the video. You could maybe talk to your neighbor, or again, if someone wants to lead at the front, maybe brainstorm, right? What are fixed expenses? So expenses that will be more or less the same month to month, week to week, okay, and what are variable expenses, or things you have to pay for that change from time to time. So like the other day, I made the video. I'm going to go over the list from the last time I taught this course that I kind of had saved in this file. So you can compare it to the list that you've come up with and just kind of see how they look. So again, hopefully you took some time to pause and do a little brainstorming, okay, and you'll be ready to look at this list now. So we're going to start with the fixed expenses. So again, the last time around, here's some examples of some fixed expenses. And actually the first two, when I was looking at this file, I found kind of interesting because it might not be the case anymore. The first two that my class came up with last time was phone and internet. So I think that means more like for home phone, right? But phone on a plan. If you have a plan where you're supposed to spend, say it's $30 a month and it gets you so many minutes, so much data, that sort of thing, that would be a fixed income, or sorry, a fixed expense, right? Because you know exactly how much your phone bill is going to be so long as you don't go over what the limits are. Okay, similar for internet usage, right? If you have a plan where you pay a certain amount per month and you don't go over your limit, then that would be a fixed expense. You know exactly how much you pay from month to month. Okay, other things that are fixed. Okay, TV, so cable bill would be a fixed expense. Okay. Your rent or your mortgage payment for whatever the term of your contract is would be a fixed expense. It doesn't change. Okay. Tuition. So when you're going to university, okay, that should be all set up in advance. You know what it'll be. It's a fixed expense. Okay. Insurance payments. Okay. A parking pass. So we talked about, or maybe like a parking spot if you're renting an apartment or in a condominium. But if it's a regular fee, that's going to cost you the same amount month to month, and that would be a fixed expense. Okay, so I'm going to reset my screen shade here, and now we'll look at the other set. So here are some examples of variable expenses. Okay, water. And by this we mean the water bill, not like buying a bottle of water. But yeah, for utilities, right? You don't know exactly how much water you're going to use. Okay, and month to month it varies. Right? You probably use a little more water in the summer if you own a home because you'd be watering plants, that sort of thing. Okay, electricity. Okay, it's not exactly the same month to month because it's based on usage. Okay, gas. Okay, whether that be heating fuel for your home or just buying gas for your vehicle, that's a variable expense. Okay, food is variable. Okay, and I mean even if you bought the exact same groceries week to week, there are sales. Prices change from here and there, so it wouldn't be exactly the same. Okay, fuel. So I guess we talked about that one. Is variable. Okay, cost of books. Right. So again, if you're going to post-secondary, you got to buy your own books. So at the start, you won't know exactly what that will cost. Okay, clothing. Okay, and other personal items, right? Personal care stuff, shampoo, toothpaste, stuff like that. Those are going to be variable expenses as well. Okay, so the only other thing we're going to go over in this note is kind of looking at the basic structure of how you might want to set one up, or such as set a budget up, or to write it down. So they typically look something like this. Okay, it's a little table. We have our two headings. Right, one side of the budget, and the other side of the list is going to be our expenses. Okay, sometimes they break down the expenses or have more room for it because there's usually a lot more of those. Right? Income usually there's only a couple of things, maybe. Expenses there could be a lot more. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a very rough example of how this would work. So I'm thinking back to my days at the start of my career when I was supply teaching. Okay, let's say I got, in 2 weeks I had 4 supply days. So income, supply days. So I write down what I got. It's 4 of them. And let's say that may earned me $820. Okay, so that's how much I made for those 4 supply days. Okay, I also did some tutoring, so tutoring sessions. Okay, and let's say that brought me in $125. Okay, so there's my income in that stretch. And at the bottom, I'll put down the total. Okay, so my total income there in this stretch is $945. Okay, now I'm going to switch over and start listing out what my expenses were. Okay, so maybe I bought groceries. Okay, and let's say that cost over a couple weeks. And so it was $215. Okay, and the electricity bill came in there. So that cost $5. What else? let's say Jasper came in 75. Maybe we get some car maintenance done. Car repair. It costs $230. Okay, so let's say that's where I'm at so far. There's all my income and my expenses. So I'm going to tally up my expenses for the moment and see what I've got. 15 plus 105. So my expenses so far are $625. So right now, I would say this budget is not balanced. Okay, it's nice that I've brought in more money than I'm spending. Okay, but it's not balanced. Okay, if it's balanced, then these two things, right, my income and my expenses should be exactly the same, because all the money that came in, I should be accounting for that in my budget. Okay, and it should be represented here in my expenses. Okay. So let's say we decide to spend a little bit on entertainment. So maybe go to the movies. So we're a night out. So let's say we're going to put that in. Let's say it costs $70 for a night out. So that's going to lower my total now. Sorry, no, that's going to increase that total. So I'm at $695. Okay. Okay, still not balanced. I still got some money left over. So I've added another row, and now let's figure out how much I have left over. So on the side, let's just figure out what I've got left. So we got 945 minus 695 is 250. So I have $250 left over. So let's say vacation fund. Okay. I'm going to put that money into some savings for a vacation fund. So now I'm at 945. Okay, and my budget is now balanced. Okay, and this is, you know, as a life skill, this is an important thing, right? If you can keep track of where all your money is going, okay, and be, you know, it forces you to think about where it's going, and hopefully that means you won't spend it on things you really need, and then you'll have more money for things that you really do want to have. Okay, but yeah, that's the basic idea of how you would write one out. So a couple things that you can be doing for the rest of the class. Okay, first, okay, there's two examples. Okay, starting on page 469 in the textbook. Okay, I really would like you to read them. Okay, it's got a much bigger and more detailed example of a budget, so you can kind of go through it, see what they look like. It talks about making adjustments, right, if something's changed. So yeah, I'd really like you to read those two examples. Okay, familiarize yourself with what it looks like. You're going to need that for your next assignment, right, for your last assignment before the break. Okay, and practice problems. Okay, it's on page 472. And these questions don't really necessarily get you to write a budget, but they have a budget in there and you have to read and interpret it. Okay, so those what those questions are really about. You don't have to set up pages and pages of budgets. You just have to answer some questions about budgets. Okay. The last thing, and if you were here yesterday, you already heard this part, but I'll mention it again to those of you who weren't here, is that on the assignment, I discovered there was a bit of an error there. So what happened, okay, is that on this question down here on the assignment, right, where it says using the guidelines discussed to determine the maximum monthly payment. Okay, I realized I actually hadn't gone over that in class. That was an oversight on my part. So the key thing that you need to know for that, again, other people in the class will have this in their notes hopefully, but is that it's 32% of your gross income. So the maximum monthly payment you can take on is based off 32% of your gross income per month. So if you figure that out, what's 32% of your monthly income, that's the payment that you can have, which then will allow you to figure out how much money you can actually borrow. Okay? So for those of you who've already handed in the assignments, okay, they should be in my desk drawer on the top right. Okay, so if you're looking for that, you'd like to make that correction, that's where it is. If you haven't handed the assignment in, I pushed the due date back till tomorrow, Friday, so you can make those corrections and get that into me. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.